All right, let's talk about the syllabus, the most interesting piece of documentation in the entire class. It's just so great, so wonderful. And it's so great and wonderful that we won't spend a ton of time looking at it because I expect you to read it. Make sure you look at it, understand it, know what's going on. We're going to hit the big things, all the things that you care about, the most important things. How do you have to be there? What do you have to do? Where's the grade going to come from? All that. So let's talk about the syllabus. Let's go ahead. You read points 1 and 2. 3.4 is just the course outline, and that's really subject to change at any time depending on what the supplies are and what's going on with the lab. So just make sure that you know what's coming, you're prepared, that you know what's on the syllabus, but also know that anything on here, because of our interesting situation, could change at any time. So we'll let you know if anything changes way ahead of time. You've really got nothing to worry about. So let's talk about the parts that you're concerned about, what you're going to be, what do you have to do, and what do you need. So as far as resources go, as long as you have your textbook, you should be good. So let's go ahead and look at point 5 and all the things you need there, okay? So point B, lab safety procedures followed at all times. Make sure you watch that video, that super interesting video on lab safety, so that you know, okay, what do I have to do in lab? How can I be safe? How can I make sure I'm clean and not contaminating anything as far as our considerations are concerned, okay? So let's look at point D, because this is going to be what you want to know. This is where your grade comes from, okay? So if you look, you have lab reports, and that's going to be the biggest chunk of your grade. That's 35% of your grade. So there's going to be a separate little post about lab reports. How do you write them? What's supposed to be in them? Every year I give you a whole document. It's essentially how to write a lab report for dummies. It's everything you need to know how to write a lab report, how to add references, just everything. If you follow that format, guaranteed A every time. And you want an A every time here. It's after the first couple of lab reports, you get the hang of it. You know how to do it. You know how to get A's. You'll get them easily. That's where the bulk of your grade is going to come from. You want an A in lab? Get A's on all of your lab reports. So then there's participation. That's 15%. There's going to be a lab final. Now this is still a little bit up in the air just with everything that's going on. Typically what we have is on the very last day of lab, which will be a week before your final exam, your actual final exams weeks, you'll come in, there'll be several stations set up, and they'll just be questions. All about things you've already done in lab, things you've already answered questions about online in your other assignments, and then you'll also get a study guide. So it's usually not a problem. As long as you know that study guide, you know what you've done in lab, not a problem, as long as you put forth the effort. But if any of that should change, we'll let you know way in advance. And then lastly, you're going to have pre-lab assignments. So I forgot to mention, with all these assignments, everything is strictly online. You're not going to turn anything as far as paper copy into me at any point in time. We just don't want to be passing things around. And we're trying to make the labs more paperless. So unless we tell you otherwise, always turn things online. When you write your lab reports, write it in a Word document in one of the computers on campus, or if you don't have that, if you're using Google Docs or Pages on Apple, convert that to a PDF. Google Docs and Pages do not get along with Blackboard. It'll blow up whatever your assignment was, and it'll be unreadable in Blackboard. So make sure if you're writing on a Mac or an iPad or something like that, convert that document to a PDF. Or if you're using Google Docs, convert it to a PDF before you turn it in. That'll save you a ton of trouble. Let's see, as far as your grades go, that's pretty much everything you need to know. If you have questions about that, feel free to email me. Now, as far as lateness is concerned, please be on time with all of your assignments. It's a way that people lose points so easily, and you don't have to lose points. These assignments don't take a ton of time to do. Once you get the hang of writing lab reports, you can knock them out in 45 minutes, sometimes even faster than that. So don't make sure you're just getting that stuff in on time. As far as your pre-labs go, those are going to be pretty easy. Those will be due each week before a new lab week. So you'll have 3-5 questions. It'll all be about what you're going to do in lab, and that's just to get your mind going. Make sure you're thinking about lab. And those add up in the end as well. If you're late at all, it's automatic. You lose 20% of the grade. So please don't do that. That is an easy way to lose your points when you really don't have to lose points at all. Okay, now let's talk about attendance. It's going to be a little different than we normally do. So at some point you're going to get an email about what lab group you're in. So for whatever class you're in, there's going to be two groups, Group A and Group B. And what they're going to do is each group is going to alternate whether or not they're in person for each lab. So at any given lab time, one group will be in the lab and the other group will be completing an online lab. So just take, for example, the first lab we do is typically scientific method. Group A is going to come in person and do a scientific method, and Group B is going to do scientific method online. They're both going to turn in lab reports unless it's specified otherwise. Sometimes if you're the online group, sometimes we'll just have a fill in the blank of several pages, just a few things you have to do, and that will count as a lab report. So each time you're going to alternate. One week you're going to be in the lab, the next week you're going to be finishing a lab online, next week in the lab, so on and so forth. And so we'll go over that again, but if you get an email and you find out you're in Group A, you're going to be on campus in person for the first lab. And if you're in Group B, you are not going to be on campus in person for the first lab. You'll be finishing your lab online. And since we're going to have so many labs online, inevitably something goes wrong with the online labs. A link breaks, the lab breaks, somebody can't finish it on their computer. This is another reason why you really want to start working on those fast, so that way if you find out, hey, my computer is doing something weird, or I don't have some software to run this lab, tell me that early and I'll troubleshoot with you. And we'll work through those problems. We'll adapt the lab, or I'll give you a separate lab or something like that, but we'll find a way to work around it. But I can't help you if you're coming in the lab on Monday and then Sunday night you tell me you're having problems. Please don't do that. Just get started early, finish those early, and if you have problems, tell me early. All right, let's make sure if there's anything else you need to know about. Grading scales at the bottom. The contact info for Dr. Funday and myself is at the bottom. So please read through this yourself. Make sure you've got at least a decent understanding of what's going on as far as the class, the syllabus. If you don't understand how the groups are working, feel free to send me an email again. I will re-explain it. That's fine. But if you understand everything and are good to go, then you don't really need anything else. Okay. If you have any questions, send me an email. If there's anything I forgot, I'll clarify it in an announcement on Blackboard.